Welcome to Homa Studios Python for Beginners series, and this will be a series of videos that focuses on functions, and we'll start very simple. I'll try to keep these as short as possible. This one will focus on the function definition and the function call. For this functions video, we're going to be using Repellit, which is an online IDE, which I really like a lot. I used it for a Programming 1 course, and it's very easy to use. It's very intuitive. It's updated often, and it has a lot of support for Python and Python modules. So that's what this is here. And this is a kind of a finished product here, and we'll start a new one, but we're going to be working with functions, which a function is really a named sequence of statements. And you can see there's things we've used before, like input statements and variables, and there's a return statement, which we'll get into in another video. But that's what we're going to use here, and we can output here in the shell area. In Repellit, we can create files over here, and it's a really great IDE. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to make a new repel, which they call them, just like in CodePen, how you make pens. These are called repels, and this is free, so that's another great thing about it. And I'm going to hit New Repel, and you could search for any language. Lots of different languages you could use in Repellit. And even if you just start typing Python, you can see there's all different modules here. They use tkinter. They work with the turtles. So if you like working with the Python turtles, they have those here. And we're just going to start with Python. If you just use Python, it's going to be Python, the newest version, which I think is 3.6.8 at this time. And I'll create a repel here. And when you create a new repel, it just puts a default name in here, which it can stay that way, but it's obviously better to change that name, and you can create folders and organize it. If you don't create any folders, it'll put these default names into an unnamed folders area. So what I'll do here is give this a name, and I'll just replace this. I'll call it function 1, and I'll put a V because I think that's how I'm going to do it. I always put a V for video. So this is function 1 because we're going to have a series of function videos. So I'll call it that for now. I'll just hit return or enter. And now keep in mind that is not a file name, that's our repel name. So here's the file name. It's just creating a main.py file, and we can create other files here. Just be aware that it will only run the main file first. So if you have other files, you have to import them into the main one to actually run the code. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a function, and then we're going to put our statements inside that function. So I'm going to move this over right now and just hide that area. And we're going to do something called the function definition. And if you use anything like JavaScript, use the function keyword. But in Python, we're going to use the def keyword. And we're going to say def. And we're going to say create. And I'll use an underscore here, create %, and I'll call it input. Usually I'll make shorter function names, but for now, I'll be very specific about it. And we'll put our parentheses here. So this is the function header. It has the def keyword. It has a name that you give it. And again, no spaces in here. They can't start with numbers. You can use camel case or whatever you want, or you could put everything together, but I'm just putting underscores right now. And this is for parameters right here. I'm not putting any parameters in right now, but we will. And instead of doing something like in JavaScript where you'd put curly brackets and do something like that, what we're going to do here, just like we did with our for statements and our while statements, our loops, is we're going to put a colon here, and then when we hit return or enter, it's going to create an indent, and that's how our block is going to be set up. So this will be our function body. So this is where all the statements that are part of the function will go. And remember, this is just the definition, so the function will not be called or it won't run until we actually have a function call. So this is the definition, and it needs to go before the function call. I know in JavaScript sometimes you can have the function call anywhere else and the definition anywhere, but in here you have to define the function first, and then you call the function. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to start off with an input statement, and we're going to do something like just creating a grade %. So we're going to do something where we enter possible points, and then we enter earned points, and it figures out a %. So we'll create some variables in here first that represent input. So the first one will be possible points. So I'll say pos points equals, and then we'll do an input, and we'll put a string that says enter possible points. And then I'll just copy this and I'll paste this, and I should call these points, and this will be earned points. Now these are a little long for now, but just so you get the idea of what we're doing. And this will be earned points, and those are our input statements. And since we're going to be doing math right off the bat, we're going to enclose this in an int function to make sure these are numbers, because remember, inputs get passed as strings. So we'll do that. So now we have our input right now. And of course that we have variables that aren't being used yet. So if you hover over this, it says it's not being used. So you'll see some of these things that'll kind of help you out as you go. And the next thing we'll do is we'll do some math here. and we'll say score. We'll call our variable score. Remember, this is a local variable because it's being created inside a function, and we'll talk more about variable scope at some point. But these are local. That means you can't use these variables. Well, you can, but you can't necessarily take these out and use them out somewhere else. Typically, we don't have to use functions in Python, but functions will be something that'll keep our code more organized, structured, and it'll make it more efficient. And most programming languages require functions anyway, so it's a good practice to get in. So that's why we're working with functions now. But we wanted to see how the code worked before we got into functions, because we can do things without functions. But from here on out, we'll try to use functions as much as we can. So we're creating a variable inside the function, and we're just going to do some math here. So to create a percent based on possible points and earned points, you do your earned points, your smaller value first, divide it by your pos points. And that'll come up with some kind of percentage or some kind of number. And if you're not sure about it yet, let's just print out the number. We could put our print statement inside the function. Eventually we'll pull it out of here and keep the print separate from what the function is doing, because the function has a purpose here, and printing isn't always the purpose of the function, even though we can put it here at the end. So I'm going to put print, and I'm just going to put score, and we'll just see what happens so far, because everything's working okay. We have no red wavy lines. Now if we run this right now, notice it's auto saving, so I don't have a save button here because it says saved. And if I run this, nothing happens. That's because we've defined a function. We have our function header. We don't have any parameters inside here. We have our colon, everything's indented okay, but we're not calling the function yet. This is just defining the function. To call the function, we have to do a function call. And that function call can't be indented because then it would be part of the function definition. So we're going to put our function call out here, and I'll even put a comment here. And to call it, you can just copy this and just put it right here, not indented. And that should call the function, and what it should do here is it should ask me to input possible points, earn points, and then do some math and print out the score. So let's see what happens. Enter possible points. I'll do like 40, and then I'll do 30 for the earn points. So that should come out to like a 75%. And it does 75, except it does 0.75, 0.75. So it gives me a float here that it's doing because it's doing Python division. So that's not exactly what I want. I might want it to have a percent after it. I might want a nice string or something, but at least it's working. We know it's working so far. So what we could do here before we print out score is we could multiply that by 100. We could just reassign this. We could do that all together, but we'll reassign it just so we see the steps. I'll say score equals score times 100, and that'll take that percent and put it into a whole number that you can actually put percent after. So I'll try that first, and I'll try it again. And I'll put 40, 30, and now it says 75.0. Now we might even want to round that off too, so we don't have a 0.0 off of that. Or we might want to leave one number there, depending on what kind of numbers we do. So even if we tried a different number, let's just try a different number here. Let's just try 40, and let me try 31. Okay, now I'm getting 77.5. That's okay, and I think I like having one number there. And what we'll do is we'll kind of round that and just put it to one number. So we can even reassign this again and put score. And again, we could have combined these statements, but we're separating them out here. And we're going to do round. We're going to do the round function. And we're going to put in score and then 1, because it's going to round that off. We'll round it off to one place. So just for example, if we didn't have this, and let's run it again. Let me put in a number that I know will have something like a lot of repeating integers. So I'll put like 30 and 20, and you can see it's doing 66.68. And so we don't want all those. We want it to round off. So if we did it this way, if we put the round here and we rounded it to one place, then I could run it again, and I could put 30 and then 20, and then it rounds it off to 66.7. It takes that repeating decimal and rounds it up, so now it's a 66.7. And if you want to put percent in here, you can actually print out, you could put a string in here if you want. If you wanted to put like an F string, you could put F, and then say like your score is, and then in curly brackets you could put score if we're using F string formatting, and then you could put a percent sign after it, And even if you want a period and then finish off your quotes, remember how the F string formatting goes. So here we're actually printing out a statement here, and we're putting the variable in here, and we're running the function call here. So let's try it one more time. And we'll try it with, we'll try the same number. We'll try 30 for possible points, and then 20 for earned points. And there it is. Your score is 66.7%. That's all we want to do right now. We have our function definition, which has our function header, we have our function body, and then we have our function call down here, which is basically running this. And that's all we need right now. Now we have our print statement inside here. Eventually we'll pull this out and use what's called a return statement, because that way our function can just kind of return a value and then whatever we want to do with it. Then if we want to print it or do something else, we'll keep that separate from the actual function of what its kind of product is, what it's producing. So we'll stop here. That's functions. That's the first part, just the definition and the function call, and we'll continue with some more exercises with functions.